So without even saying anything and doing this strategy or this activity, you can help your students understand that you want them there no matter what, that they are welcome into your classroom. Please feel free to ask questions or give me some ideas of how you might use this strategy. Okay, here's one that is scientifically proven to help people, adults, children, manage emotions. And breathing, and you're probably hearing a lot about that, is one of the fastest, quickest ways to bring yourself back into your body, bring yourself back to being aware of your emotions and being able to smooth those emotions out. There are all kinds of videos on how to do this. There are all kinds of videos on doing some type of breathing, but this one is called a 4x4 breathing or box breathing or square breathing, whatever you want to call it. So I want to take just a few moments and I want you to, oh, that's great, Doreen. I love that. She said that she has that video in her signature. So we're going to take a moment. We're going to actually do this. Now, this is the way it sets up. As soon as the video starts, it's going to ask you to breathe in for 4 seconds. You're going to then hold that for 4 seconds, then breathe out, then hold. Breathe in 4, hold 4, out 4, hold 4. And make sure that you are trying to breathe through your nose and out your mouth. So let's give this a try. Let's take a moment to breathe together. That video is from YouTube. You can look right onto YouTube and find videos for box breathing or square breathing. One of the things that I love about this particular one is that I have to concentrate on the counting and when to hold my breath. So it grounds me, especially when you're having like maybe some anxiety or a panic attack. It brings you back into your body. And another thing I love about this is that there are a variety of ways that you can encourage your students to do it. My own son struggles with anxiety. And one of the things that we do for the back of his phone is there's something called, I just forgot what it is. It's like, it's tape that you can feel. It has certain, it's like anxiety tape. It might have different textures and things like that. It comes in all kinds of colors. It comes in black, it comes in rainbow, whatever. But if he has a black phone, and so we can put tape on there in the shape of the square. And that way, as a teenager, when he is feeling particularly anxious, he can actually feel that tape with his thumb while he's holding his phone and doing the box breathing with that. So it's very, very like, no one can tell what he's doing. A great way also is to put it on your students' desks, on their computers, or even have a tape on your floor where students can get up and walk around that tape to help them do the box breathing. Okay. So once again, going to YouTube, looking at box breathing or just breathing techniques will absolutely help. This is a great thing too, if you're getting ready to start a class that's particularly rowdy, or you can come back from a lunch, or like in CTE, when you have a break, and you have the kids come back, or when you're shifting and bringing in a new group of students, these kinds of things really do help. One of the things that also will help students, it helps anyone, I keep saying students, but it helps us all, is to bring something to help us get our brains back to the very basic of survival. Our brains were designed to survive, and every single thing that we take in all day long, all the stimuli, has to go through that survival part of our brain first. Because of that, our taste buds, especially sour and bitter, are actually designed in us to keep us from ingesting harmful substances. So when we taste something bitter or sour, our survival brain instantly goes and says, wait a minute, what is this? So for that reason, when you're having a panic attack, if you have a student who's particularly panicky or anxious or whatever, you can give them Sour Patch candy or very sour candy. That helps, because as soon as they are having that panic attack or they're having anxiety, all that anxiety and panic is putting us in the what if realm. When you taste that sour, our brain, designed to keep us safe, instantly goes to that and focuses on the here and now. The same thing happens with cold water. Putting your hands or face in cold water can literally help students to control their emotions, help them manage themselves, and level out so that they can be of use. Many of you are working in shops and labs that have lots of different dangerous things in there, and you need to have your students really on their best game. So something this simple can literally help a student, and they might not even know that you're helping them with a panic or a stressful situation, but this is a real fast, easy way. Tell them to go to the bathroom, put their hands in cold water, give them some candy. It's very helpful. So also self-management and self-awareness. When your students and when you are having trauma or have had trauma, it may come back in certain times. It's really very helpful to kind of know where you are so that you know how or when you're feeling these things and to do something about it. So fight or flight, we've all heard about that. Fight or flight was when we fight our way through it or we run away. Recently, there's been research to add two more. One is freeze, really having a difficult time knowing what to do, disassociating, isolating, numbing yourself. And then there is one called fawn. And I was amazed when I saw that, because I feel like in different times, in different situations, we might go through all of these. But fawn for me was shocking, because this is exactly how I behave. Being very much a people pleaser, being overwhelmed, holding on to things. So that is also a trauma response, which was really, really helpful to know. Also, when you're dealing with all these kids and things get out of control or whatever, it's really helpful to see your kids through these, because it helps us to be able to understand our students a little bit better. Earlier, I talked about empathy, and empathy is really, really difficult to teach students, but through things like this empathy map, it can really help us. And we can do this with situations. Let's pretend that we would be able to do it with customer relationships, or if we have a boss-worker relationship and something has happened. This is a great way to take scenarios in CTE and really help students plan before these situations happen. In the world of work, we are always going to experience situations where either there is an argument between two workers, boss and worker, customers, whatever it is. This can also be used when there's an actual situation occurring in your classroom. So what do they think and feel? This is a great place to ask the students, okay, so you have a customer coming in, they're yelling at you. What do they think and feel? What do they see? What do they hear, and what do they say and do? So I want to show you, and you have a link to this in your action agenda. But I wanted to show you one of those that some people did. Sorry, I gotta find the right thing here. Let me get to the Jamboard to show you what it kind of looks like. I'm clicking all over the place. Well, I don't have it on there. I thought I did. Let's see, group one. There we go. Okay, So some people were able to put in, when we talked about what do you do if you have a student who's a troublemaker, let's say. When students have caused a problem, they'll come in and say, they think that they are cool. What do they see? They've seen their parents act like this. And so that's how they cope. And so then that's what they do. What do they hear? They might hear things like somebody laughing and thinking it's funny, someone thinking it's okay. And what do they say and do? Very defensive. So it's just a way to pull apart emotions from students and let them see maybe how somebody else is behaving and why. Once again, a great thing to do with students when thinking about workplace relationships and helping them to do a little bit of pre-work before they go out into the workforce and deal with that kind of stuff. My computer's going slowly. There we go. Okay, there's the picture of the one I was looking for. So in Jamboard, it's a great place to do it. And then students can put in, what kind of things that they think the other person who's having the problem is thinking and feeling. So would you rathers? These are some really fun things to help students to help them make decision making. Now, the thing about this is a very basic thing, but you could even use these would you rather situations as maybe a bell ringer or something like that with your students. The thing about decision making is that students need to develop that decision making muscle, and it's very important for social emotional learning because this is where they start to weigh options or they start to look at consequences, good and bad. So students, even though they might be 11th grade or 12th grade, may have never really had the option to choose something and to discuss why. And so it's something that we can do in our classrooms that really makes it easy before we go on to asking them what kinds of decisions are they going to make about their lives? What kind of decisions are they going to make about the workplace? So these would you rathers can get really funny. And you can literally look and Google would you rather questions, and it will come up with all kinds of things. But this is a good way to have a conversation with your students about decision-making and consequences. And it is easier for them to talk about this because it kind of takes them out of the limelight of it being specifically about them and really more about what they think. So this is a good example of helping students make decisions while also having a little fun with them while doing it. There's also something called this and that, this or that, and it's kind of the same thing. So I wanted to take a look at this quote here, and I want to give you just a moment to look at it. Relationship skills. Once again, developing and maintaining supportive relationships is something that's very important for social emotional learning. And I love this quote because a lot of times I say to myself, I don't have time for this. I don't have time for this. But this was profound because one way or the other, we're spending time. Either we spend time meeting children's emotional needs by filling their cup with love, or we spend time dealing with the behavior caused from their unmet needs. Either way, we spend the time. So maybe some of you could put in chat what this inspires you to think of as you're reading that quote. We think it's true. We think it's not true. I know it's late in the day. I'm asking you to think about something on a Monday afternoon. I know it's crazy. But yeah, so just thinking about that, when we say that we don't have time or something, we have to deal with it one way or the other. I have a couple people coming in. People say, yes, absolutely true. And not just kids. Absolutely. Definitely true. Very true. Thank you. Sometimes it feels like certain kids take up so much time, but often I think it's because of time and energy that hadn't been given to them in the past. That's such a profound statement, Rachel. You're absolutely right. Yes. Fill the cup. It's so worth it. Yeah. Yeah, proactive, absolutely. And I think a lot of this stuff that we're talking about today, and once again, it's not specifically CTE centered or little kid centered or whatever. These are just skills that these students may not have had. And when you look at something as simple as doing a would you rather thing, not only are these skills that maybe they've never had in their life, but especially in the last couple of years where we've been unschooled and reschooled and back to unschooled, kids need help with these very basic things. I think so too, Doreen. You're absolutely right. Doing this with colleagues as well. So just like me statement, this is something that you can use just to get your kids to know each other. A lot of times kids feel like they are absolutely the only people in the world who are like them. And it's very, very isolating. So you can establish a signal for quiet and your routine. And you can write, and I always have them to do a preemptive, write 5 things about yourself that people might not know, or whatever it is that you want to share. And then I start and say, I have 2 brothers, and anybody who has 2 brothers will either raise their hand or whatever and say, just like me. And then you can pick someone else to go and they can say something. I have twin brothers, and anybody who has twins. So it kind of goes around. And once again, you can use this throughout your curriculum as well. It's anything that you want to have, like building relationships with students. You know, do you like the building materials we used on that? Or do you prefer to use this tool? Or do you prefer to use this method of blood pressure, or whatever it is? You're the experts on the content. It's just really neat for them to have a discussion like this where they are connecting with others. That helps them to start thinking about when you're doing group work to work with people like them. And it can help to spark some new relationships. Here are some 12 strategies that you can use, just very, very simple to just really relate to your students. Number 1, knowing their story. That's kind of the reason why I talk about some of these smaller things, or that fight or flight, fawn or freeze chart, is when we know our students, and you spend so much time with your kids and you do a lot of things, it really helps us to develop some empathy for them and maybe help us to know exactly how to deal with them when it happens that way. Assume that students, assume the best in every student. I think that sometimes we're walking around and we're so frustrated with life that we forget to assume that everyone's pretty much trying to do their best. And when kids see you doing that, they're going to do that back together as well. Interviewing students, once again, we're always interviewing students, but maybe putting in a little SEL kind of thing for the students when it comes to the business world. Being very authentic, et cetera, et cetera. This is a strategy that can be used, once again, with some CTE scenarios of thinking about things that could happen in the workplace, or when there's been a situation that's happened with behavior. This is where you can really help students make some decisions. This is kind of a responsive, reflective way of handling issues. So you can sit it down and you can see where the arrows go, but you have some questions that you can ask. First of all, give me the facts. What happened? What's your response? Interpretive and decision-making level. So this gives a student a chance, whether a made-up scenario or a real scenario, where they can take a look at the facts all the way to a decision that was made and how they could do it better the next time. It is still building those muscles of getting them to be able to handle making a decision while weighing consequences when it comes down to it. I like this because I think, as if there are any administrators on here, also giving teachers some choice. There's a way that these are choice boards, and this is great for students. If you have kids who have to do a project and there are lots of different ways that they could do it, give them some choice. Or this is a great way to make sure that everybody who is in your classroom has a chance. It can be, with differentiation for special education students. It can be students who are hands-on or auditory or visual. It's also a great way to help teachers. So if you have a certain thing that you want your teachers or your PLCs to learn, this is a way that you can put it on there that gives teachers still a chance to learn about something new, but also choose how they want to do it. So this is just a neat one that's already made that I found online. that gives teachers a chance to say, hey, I'd like to learn about this through doing this, watching a TED Talk, reading a professional development book, and tweeting one thing fun. They're still learning, but they have a lot of options on how to do it. This is a student choice board, and this is one that you can make for your students. And the link will give you this exact thing, and you follow it. And when you're done, you will have a fully virtual tic-tac-toe board. It's very simple to use. You just follow directions 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And finally, the last thing that I want to talk to you before we take some questions is that this is a self-care plan. And I think that this is something that we have to kind of think about when, especially for teachers, because teaching in a classroom is very much like being in a fight, flight, freeze, or fawn situation at all times. We can be as planned as we want to, but you know, as well as I do, anything can occur in that classroom. This also has been shown with questioning techniques when they tell teachers that it's great. You're going to be asking hundreds of questions all day, but really pre-plan a couple of questions so that when you're on the stage with the kids, that you already have those questions planned. It's the same thing with self-care and social emotional learning. When you can see that stress is coming in your future, prepare. What kinds of things would you use? Would you use some deep breathing? Would you use some yoga? Would you use one of the varieties of different ways? Kind of have some things set. When I feel this way, or when the students feel this way, this is what we can try. When you're in the moment, being able to have preferred activities to help manage those emotions with the students and with yourself is a big benefit so that you can immediately put them into action. Have a plan of how you're going to recover from it. This is where we kind of try to pull ourselves away from all of our other less healthy strategies to cope. Instead of, like me, wanting to eat like an entire box of little Debbie snack cakes, there's a different way that I could do a relax. And so I can find some strategies that help me do that. And finally, maintain. What am I going to do to keep myself and my students on track? You may be really reluctant to try some of these strategies with your students for social emotional learning. Maybe like the box breathing, you're thinking, well, my kids would never do it, or there's a few that would do it, or whatever. Once again, they have never been really taught how to manage their emotions. They may never have been exposed to these kinds of things. So it will be uncomfortable at first, but you'll be surprised how quickly that they are going to come around and see those kinds of things. So as an exit ticket, I'd love to hear one word that kind of makes you think about any of these strategies or about social emotional learning. If you could put that one word on this Slido or in the chat, and then we can open it up for some questions, Lori. Excited, hopeful. Oh, I love that. That's like one of my favorites. Hopeful. I love hope. Grateful, curious. Critical. Yes, it is. Happy. Optimistic, flexible. Yeah, flexible is so important for you and for the kids. Thoughtful. Empathetic, empathy. Yes. Good, hopeful. I love that. Great, Paulina. I love that. You're encouraged. Good. Yes. I think the one thing that I want you to really understand from this too is that social emotional learning is very, very important, but it's not something that needs to be a big monster for you to take on. Caitlin, I'm so glad, validated. That's an awesome word. These things can be done very easily and with few moments in your day. And once again, when you leave here, don't try to think that you need to do all of these strategies or you need to take on the entire world of social emotional learning for your students. Take one little thing that you learned today or one little thing that this made you think about, and do it and put it into place and reflect on it before you take another big chunk out of trying to do something. I really encourage CTE teachers to really think about scenarios as much as possible and helping students plan to work through scenarios that they will encounter in their work, even if it's an apprenticeship or if they're going out for work-based learning or whatever, to really help them hone in on those skills. Proactive instead of reactive, Stephanie. That's perfect. Yes, yes. So I thank you all. You have all of the resources that were in this presentation today, and you have my email address.